very generous in introducing me. Your Excellency, Deepak Gopal Wadwa, Indian Ambassador to Japan, Suzanne, my Second Secretary to State of Qatar Mission in Japan, distinguished guests, fellow bankers, ladies and gentlemen. It's a pleasure and privilege for me to be integral part of this interesting and exciting team. It's always been a joy to visit Japan, especially what a season. I saw the cherry blossom every single week, and it was exciting to see the color combination, both white and cherry colors. Extraordinary weather condition, and the turnout has been large in numbers. I thank you, one and all, for your graceful presence. I came yesterday morning, and we had a series of ones. The most exciting was the last one, which is what I'm going to share with you. I met a few banks who are our partners. So, Sumitomo, Mitsubishi UFJ, some of the corporates like Toyota and Marubeni. It was full of commitments and extraordinary time I'm going to have to go through. In the afternoon, I had the press. The last one was exactly what I want to share. That is the concept which I want to talk. That was Tokyo TV was asking nearly an hour. I'm not going to take an hour to answer, but I'm going to condense it for the next 30 minutes. Very thought-provoking, very interesting and exciting questions you asked me. If I put the questions as well as the answers, I've done the session. I don't need to run through the PowerPoint presentation. The first question was, is the financial crisis over? Rightfully, everyone's concerned. My answer is, it is not. The reason being, what is conceived as a liquidity crisis way back in 2008, when Lehman Brothers collapsed. Bastion was taken over by JP Morgan. Liquidity crisis has moved into a funding crisis. Funding crisis is moved into a solvency crisis and sovereign crisis as we speak. That's the only change we have seen. To fix the liquidity, to improve the money supply, regulators have started printing enormous amount of money, open market operations, what do you call quantitative easing. By supplying additional liquidity in the market, the asset price inflation was on. The stock market was picking up. Money transcended borders. Hard money was transacting in the emerging market as well from the developed economies. G7 has become G8. G8 has become G20. The world at large has not set in a universal standard to have sustainable growth. What has changed is simple liquidity. If phase one is Lehman Brothers, October 2008, phase two is money supply. If America can print money, trillions of dollars were put into open market operations. European Central Bank has started doing it as well. Bank of England, again, United Kingdom has set in a mission to inflate the economy, and again, they printed money. With Japan, the challenge was real. You have to inflate the economy. Abenomics was invented. Essentially, the money supply, trillions of yen was put into open market operations. That has helped to inflate the economy. Japan is possibly out of technical recession. So this is the exact changes happened. money supply has inflating this world. Sustainable economics. How do we eradicate extreme poverty? How do we bring in gender equality? How do we fix the terminal diseases? How do we ensure environment sustainability comes in? What sort of global partnership and reorganization is required to have a better world, sustainable world? How do we redefine universal standard? The answer is still in mystery. Of course, G20 has set in the right kind of mission. Unless we have universal standard in terms of accounting, valuation, and securitization, unless we eradicate the parallel system, tax havens, we are not going to have a sustainable growth in the world. Long way to go. That's why I answered the first question. The world is not out of the woods. The financial crisis has turned into a human crisis. The world at large is rebuilding this partnership. The next question was, again, interesting. What sort of geopolitical instability do you see? Today, most of you must have seen, I got up at 2 o'clock because of jet lag. Generally, I don't face jet lag, but within the span of 1 week, I have been traveling 3 different continents, so I had to face the tune. So I got up at 2 o'clock, I switched on the television. I saw the good news that Iran was coming to terms with the rest of the world. That's a good development, significant development. It has got wide impact. It has got significant impact in the financial market. So I was keen on going through the consensus clauses which are responsive to see how Iran will be adding to the financial markets. So the question is, what sort of reorganization taking place in real order? If Crimea was an annexation, if Russia wants to enlarge its political ambit, Americans were sanctioned, Europeans were tough in their sanctions. That has reorganized the economic governance as well. The supply chain for the European economy, in terms of energy, major provider was Russia. That's getting redefined. Obviously, Russia has to find another partner in the name of China. Over $400 billion worth of contracts was signed late last year. That's a change. That's a significant development. And again, if you look at the ISIS extremism, which is dominating in some part of the world, especially in the Middle East, that's an extraordinary development. Today, even security is in need. Essentially, that is creating new sort of reorganization, whether it is NATO, whether it is American engagement in the Middle East, or the rest of the world trying to iron out Syria and Libya, so-called Arab Spring candidates. And that's getting reorganized in a different form and substance. And again, Yemen is the latest addition, which you have seen. If you calculate all this, the arithmetic is very simple. The world is getting reorganized. We are in the transformation world. The geopolitical tension is going to be the substance for us to see. We live in an interconnected, interdependent world, one world. That's the message we have to communicate for the sake of the future generation. That's why the impact of lack of convergence between politics and economics is killing the world. In the midst, there are some good things happening. when I said this, the third question is, you are very pessimistic in your pursuit of profession. Tell me, what is good in this world? I said, India. India is a good candidate. A functional democracy has set a resounding mandate for political reasoning. And today, you have a stable and functional economy, which is progressively productive over 7%. Politics and economics is converging in substance. While America is said to be recovering, housing market is said to be recovering, inflation is measurable and manageable, jobless claims are reducing in the United States. India is another economy which is in a growth mode. You have to understand this balance. It's an extraordinary set of econometrics which can drive the change. This century will have a lot of cash to give for a functional democracy which is going to grow not less than 8 to 9% in real order, provided a fixed set of policy framework that is converging. The new government set an extraordinary mission to converge the politics and economics, as I mentioned. Some of the policy decisions which have been taken. The Indian ambassador is here. And the Prime Minister, he himself is a telling story how he reorganized, how he transformed in his previous profile as the Chief Minister of the state, and he's trying to execute with extraordinary pace some of the astounding policy frameworks which are governing in real order with transparency. So that's the good news. The world at large is looking at India as a destination for investment. So there are competing signals for us to see. The world can be reorganized. The next question comes. How is Japan performing? What is the current status of Japan? Japan has got bigger opportunities to recognize. In its own wisdom of financial stability, with the extraordinary investment surplus, Japan has to reorganize its investment plan. India is a destination, the bigger destination. That's why the combination of India and Japan is a win-win model, which we need to recognize. Similarly, Japan and Qatar are logical partners. It's an extraordinary relationship. I'm going to put you in perspective in a few minutes. And the Gulf states are the true partners for Japan. India is becoming a formidable opportunity for Japan. That's what the next question is all about. Tell me about Qatar or Gulf-Japan partnership is the next question. Qatar is a country of great substance. Those who understand the dynamics of Qatar governance, economic partnership, social partnership, political partnership, it's an extraordinary story. We need to understand. Here is a country fully recognized by Japanese in 1972. 1971 was the birth of a nation called Qatar. Qatar was fully recognized first by Japanese in 1972. Having realized conserved resources in terms of natural gas, the first LNG port was constructed by Japanese in Russell Pond. The first consignment was dispatched to Japan by Chuba Electric. Again, not long ago, when Japan had to go through the tragic incident of Fukushima, it was Qatar was the first one to come to rescue. Perhaps you can recall. Qatar supplied additional LNG. Second Secretary is here. Qatar supplied additional oil. Tokyo Electric, Kansai Electric, they were all integral part of the overall takers in terms of additional energy supply. In addition, Qatar gave $100 million. The ambassador is managing the fund for the needs, those who are displaced on account of this tragic incident. That goes a long way in terms of sentiments. It's a friendly need. That's the level of commitment Qatar has demonstrated. It's an extraordinary relationship. If you look at today, the bilateral relationship is around $35 billion. If you look at Gulf states as a whole, it is over $165 billion to be precise. Topping the list is Saudi Arabia. Japan is importing 1.16 billion barrels of oil. 55 billion is a bilateral trade. The second one is United Arab Emirates, $51 billion. 861,000 barrels of oil is being exported from the UAE. Qatar supplies oil, natural gas, and petrochemicals. Over 35 billion is the trade. That's an opportunity which is enlarging. If you look at the bigger picture, the financial stability of the region is given. Certainly, Tokyo TV intervened and said this. You are exaggerating the figures. You have to say why the oil price is quoting so low, how these economies are going to sustain, how can we say it's stable and functional economies? Right question. We have seen a deflection in the oil price of late. Oil price has come down on account of excess supply, no doubt. Hydraulic fracturing by Americans with the gas and oil is one factor. The demand has also come down. Emerging markets like in China, to be precise, is slowing down. While I said India is going to grow 7+, China is, according to IMF, is 6.8% this year, next year possibly 6.2%. So that's a clear reflection. Industrial engineering is slowing down, oil consumption will slow down, the market is factored. The bigger picture is, people have forgotten, it is not the demand and supply. Nothing has impacted over 50% you have deflection. Neither the supply nor the demand. It is the currency. The dollar index is strengthened by virtue of the accommodative monetary policy. The currency was weakening hitherto. When the currency was weakening, people were hedging the risk by buying commodity futures. That's law. Finished. Over. When oil price was over $100, you were hedging the risk by buying commodity futures. It is not the spot deals which were responsible for such a hike. It is the oil futures who were responsible. Now, who will catch the falling tide? Nobody. In the process, nobody is hedging the risk. Only spot deals are taking place. If you can read the report of commodity trading corporations, the United States has got a bigger speculation in terms of commodities. And that was curbed, rightfully so, by the regulators. If you read today, it's virtually nil. Stands still. That has got a reflection. Over 25% dollar index was strengthened. Dollar as a basket of currency has moved from 79 basis points to over 100. It came down. Of late it is 96 basis points. That's in fact as well. So what will happen to the oil price? That's the question, right? So oil price, if it goes to $40, which is possible, short term it is possible with the current development which I mentioned just now, with Iran coming to terms. If Iran is going to supply additionally oil, then you have definite reflection of excess supply. That's going to bring down the price short term. But the break-even cost for the Gulf state is far low, far below $20. That 45% of the world oil, 25% of the world gas comes from. We know clearly what's the break-even cost. The Gulf states can afford to take the short-term pressure. Not the new producers who are engaged in hydraulic fracturing. That is energy not efficient. It is not energy efficient. It is not environment friendly. They cannot sustain less than $60. So essentially, the medium and long term, the price will reach between $65 to $70. That's illogical. If you take 65 as the barometer, converting it into one fabric, whether you produce oil or gas, the Gulf states, 6 states put together can generate not less than 1.7 trillion as the GDP. As a percentage of GDP, current account surplus cannot be less than 20%. That's over $300 billion. That's huge. And these economies are modernizing today. These economies are upgrading their infrastructure, airport, seaport, road, rail, 2022, World Cup in Qatar, 2020 in the UAE. These are not ordinary expansion, extraordinary expansion. The fiscal framework this year alone is over $300 billion is the government expenditure. That drives the change. So who has got opportunity? Japan has got opportunity. Who would desalinate the Gulf water? It is Japan. Who is engaged in many of the EPC contract industrial engineering? It is Japan. So if you build this partnership, strengthen the partnership, you have better opportunity, whether you're a small or medium and large enterprise, doesn't matter. You have bigger opportunity to build this, reorganize this partnership. So, investment side, you have destinations like India. In trade, you have bigger opportunities. Again, banking, you have bigger opportunities. In processing, you have bigger opportunities in the Gulf states. That's my simple message. And that is the point I was trying to articulate. That's the question and answer I gave. Then you were astute enough to ask, what's the way out for this war? How are we seeing? If you are the administrator, if you are a single decision maker for this war, what you would have answered? What you would have formulated as a policy framework? That's not easy. Now, how do we reorganize this war? What sort of financial stability we need? What sort of sustainable growth we need? How do we bring in sustainable war? How do we bring in global growth which are measurable, manageable, controllable in sustainable form and substance? Is the next question. For which, again, they have to get back to the nation's Millennium Development Goals. The answer lies in reorganizing the Millennium Development Goals. That was my answer. We need to, it's due for change now. That's, as diplomats, they know better than me. It was 2015 was the deadline. Again, nation should reshape the world. With the changing dynamics in the world, we need to look at critically and see what sort of change is required to converge the 192 countries. While the international stability has been set, as I mentioned, some of the initiatives which are responsive to bringing financial stability should be redefined in scope and substance. And that's where you can bring in new world order. What does it mean? There are quite a few developments again. It's worth noting. I was talking about emerging markets and developing world and developing world. While the contentious issues are visible between the developing world and developed world, the progress at which the emerging economies are coming together, the pace at which is something worth watching. BRIC has set in a new mission, committed mission now. BRIC Bank is coming up. BRIC Bank is going to support for infrastructure creation, while World Bank and IMF are global institutions. Global governance is getting challenged on account of certain dominance. This needs to be reorganized. While you have converged G7 to G20, you have to give decision, empower the emerging markets into the global governance. That's really the how. It's inclusive. In real order, in one world, if you believe in it, then you have to empower the emerging market to take decisions. That's the need. If you don't do it, additional crops will follow through. Asian Development Bank, Japanese are controlling it. And again, Americans have a say. The United States has got a big say in the global governance in terms of IMF or World Bank. Whether you are a chief of IMF, whether World Bank, you need political support. It's not only economics or intellects can occupy the position. Voting rights gets reorganized now in IMF. We have seen the compulsions of the emerging markets. Now, of late, a couple of days before, we have seen China has pronounced Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank. Perhaps we can recollect. Not long ago, just a couple of days before. That's a huge development. 150 billion has been the commitment. China is going to fund a significant portion of it. The rest of the world is coming, while Americans have to worry about it. Because this is a new crop. This has got significant stand in terms of reorganization of the Asian economies. BRIC Bank is another development. The Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank is another development. These are some of the crops which are worth noting if you understand the changing dynamics of the world. This reorganization is going to give us enormous amount of opportunity for economic acceleration of the emerging markets. That's not ordinary. Even if you look at the global growth is between 3.5 to 3.6%. Developed world is doing between 2.2 to 2.4%. Significant portion of the growth comes out of emerging markets, including emerging Asia like India, China, ASEAN, the 5 countries. And again, you have incremental growth in arithmetics. Over 60% of the incremental growth comes from the emerging market. It means there's an absolute change in the market preference. And that is an opportunity, those who understand the dynamics of the change. That's why reorganization in global makeup is required. Countries or continents who have lived beyond their means have to come to terms. Look at Europe today. It's struggling. While the monetary policy is centralized, fiscal policy is not centralized. Maastricht criteria setting a committed mission. How much should be the standard for gross debt to GDP? What should be the deficit financing? What should be the inflation? What has happened to Europe? While European Central Bank has to measure and manage and control the money supply, interest rate, but they couldn't contain the countries who were spending beyond their means. Greece was a classic story. And if countries have lived beyond their means, somebody has to bail out. Unless you have a political union in addition to monetary union, make no mistake. When you set a barometer as a currency, you have to integrate politics in conjunction with economics. If you don't do it, you have a disarray. That is why, as a design, it's being challenged. As a birth, it's a deformity. That's the issue today. In Europe, still, we have reading issues. Every month, 60 billion euro is being printed as additional money. That's when inflate. That's when inflate again. The world at large has to recognize in a mission there are opportunities if you reorganize. And that's why I call upon this partnership. I call upon the partnership, a tripartite partnership. I said this to I said this to Sumitomo. I seriously see emerging markets are going to have incremental contribution. Advanced Asia should recognize this opportunity. And Japan should recognize its opportunity to build India, Gulf Japan as a bigger brand. You have to recognize that in aggregate terms, the Gulf states are going to produce the next N number of years, not less than 78%. Pure econometrics, with the size and scale of the market, India is going to grow not less than 7 to 8%. What's the problem today for India? Fiscal consolidation. Inflation is under control. By oil price coming down, inflation is under control. Inflation is around 5.1% plus. Current account deficit is reducing. It's less than 2%, 1.9%. Fiscal deficit is, again, 4% was the target, now 3.6%. Perhaps 3% they will reach. The budget has been an extraordinary watershed landmark budget. That's going to stimulate investment. Japan can come together and invest in bilateral terms. That is an opportunity where you cannot afford to miss. Infrastructure, trillions of dollars are required for India's expansion. South Finance Commission of India has spelled out over 1 trillion as a requirement. Airport, seaport, road, again. There are many industrial corridors are shaping up. And Japan is a friend and partner. Real friend for India. They can bridge this gap. Similarly, proximity and human capital India has invested is the Gulf. Look at the interconnectivity. Over 7 million Indians are working in the Gulf. It's very near. The cultural alliance is given. And the bilateral trade is over 150 billion between the Gulf states and India. And if this partnership, temporary agreement can come in, we can understand and we can facilitate to promote sustainability. You need to understand this opportunity. You have to seize this opportunity to make sure we promote bilateral values. That is the very purpose of my presence here today. I'm glad I met many of my fellow bankers and some of the corporates we have been meeting. I've been here since 2006, time and again. We had opportunities. Many Japanese companies are visiting Qatar and the Gulf states. Doha Bank today is a global financial institution. We have 50 branches in Qatar. We have cross-border branches in Dubai, Abu Dhabi, and Kuwait. Now we have our first Qatari bank license. We got it, and we commissioned our branch in India, in Mumbai. Yesterday, I started out buying out 2 of the HSBC Oman branches, that is Cochin and Mumbai again. And we are here to promote the bilateral opportunities. It's not only banking, it is cross-border investments, cross-border trade. Take Doha Bank as your funding partner. We are going to make sure we disseminate the information. Time and again, we don't cut cocktails alone. We do the knowledge sharing sessions. A couple of years before, I was here doing the IMF session 2012, October 2012 I was here. We had good exchange of views. There were follow-up calls were made, and many corporates are coming to the Gulf, and Japanese companies are opening accounts and building relationships, and we want to facilitate. Small and medium-sized entrepreneurs from Japan, you're most welcome. You have bigger opportunity with the infrastructure creation the Gulf states are engaged. And we, as a professional integrator, we operate more as a commercial team to facilitate this partnership. We are here to make sure your business will have sustainable growth and profitability. We will add value to you to prosper mutually. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.